All right, everybody, this is going to be a long one, so make sure that you have your beverage because it is time for my update to something old, something new, something gifted, and something blue. Before I start on that, I'm going to ask you to please do all of the things. You know what they are. Okay, so this is a project that actually developed from a conversation that Misty and Jessica Lee were having, where Misty had said she wanted a smaller project. She wanted to be able to do old new stuff at the same time. Sparked the wedding rhyme in Jessica's head. I always credit both the ladies with this because if they weren't talking to each other, this wouldn't have happened. Although Misty says Jessica created it for her. So however you want to look at it, it is going to be down in the description box. Now, I know that I try and have a list of everybody else doing the project also in that description box because I don't always remember who's doing it and where they're doing it. I'm the one that does the crazy trivia. Okay, I think we've all established that. I know that Sam First Time Panda does it here on YouTube. I know that Andrea's done it here on YouTube. I know that Jessica was, but then she was going to do it on Instagram. Misty does it on YouTube. Like I said, everything that I have for information is going to be in the description box. This started, oh geez, last year. So it's about a year and a half, something like, I don't know, somewhere in there. Somewhere I think I might even have it written down, but I never remember. It doesn't have a start or an end date necessarily. It's just something that as long as you want to do it, you can do it. I suggest though that if you do want to join in on this, let somebody know so like I can update my list, throw out my comments or something, and then like let Misty and Jessica know because they're actually the creators of it, just so that they can follow along with you. Hashtag old new gifted blue. Okay, updates are kind of whenever, according to my schedule. And I don't even remember the original. I think the original date was the 24th for this. But like I said, it's a very loose project at this point. So it took me freaking 6 months of this year just to get through my bouquets section. And then because I kept missing things. So this is a project for me that honestly, when it sparks something is when I go down the rabbit hole. And I did today. Oh yeah, I've got all kinds of goodies for you. But sometimes for me, it's almost a little bit of a struggle because I always want to be able to talk about something wedding related. And I do have bizarre things that come into my head, so this shouldn't be an issue. I don't know what my issue was for the first half of this year. Anyway, rambling. Let's just get on with this. It's already going to be long enough. Okay, so last month, what I had in for old is I had this very old Bath and Body Works. Oh, what were these? These were the signature vanillas, and this was the berry one. This was the body spray. We started up here. I use these as room sprays. This is gone. So that's a really old one out of my collection. I'm very happy about that. I tend to use things that I know I can go through or samples in this just because I want to be able to rotate more quickly. Yeah. All right, my new product was this new version to me of the Smashbox Photo Filter primer. This one was the Control Mattifying Primer. So weird fun fact about this was just a little one, it's gone. This is not clear like the original. It is not quite as silicone-y feeling as the original. This is a white, almost cream feeling, although it does still have a lot of those properties. I have dry skin, so I can't tell you if the oil control is better than the regular. I have no clue. Did I like this? Yeah, it actually worked fairly well. I enjoyed it, but I really like that silicone slip. So I'm sticking with the original as my holy grail. Okay, don't think that really helped anybody out there, but now you know. All right, for the gifted, I brought in just a couple of samples. These were the Ralph Lauren Romance. And they're fine. They're nice. I went through them. They're pretty. I would wear it. I wouldn't object to it, but it's not one of those things that I'm going to run right out and buy. So these are going in the recycling. These will go in with the makeup-y stuff after you see them at the end of the month. But somebody had asked me if I like the fragrance, and I do. It is a pleasant fragrance. It's nice and it's light, so it's not overpowering. But I would have to like find it on a really good deal or something before I would pick it up. I wouldn't not get it, but it's not something I'm going to run out and buy. Wow, I'm not giving you any information on any of these products, apparently. Alrighty, so then let's talk about, oh, my blue. I have like tonight's use left. I have it in one of those toothpaste things. This is, let's see if I can get out of here. So this. It is the Korres foaming cream cleanser. It's not bad. I don't get foaming necessarily. I mean, it's not like it doesn't, but I just, maybe I'm not using it quite. I get a little water in my hand and just spread it all over, and it works fine. It doesn't dry me out. It's a good cleanser. It's not like, okay, when I hear foaming, I think of the Bath and Body Works Gentle Foaming Hand Soap, so it doesn't do that, okay? That's where the difference is. I suppose if you put it on completely dry, it would not be as comfortable, but like I said, I always have my hands a little bit damp because that's my second cleanse. So it's working out just great, but also not something I'm going to run right out and buy. It doesn't dethrone my fresh soy cleanser, so there you go. Wow. Yeah, okay. I'm going to do this differently this time. I'm actually going to give you what I am bringing in right now because my trivia and my music moment segue. So, I know this is a change, but this is just the way my brain is working today, so this is what you're getting. I can't guarantee it will stay this way. What I decided to bring in this month for my old is this really old Meaningful Beauty. This is the firming serum. I have no idea how much is even left in this. It's been sitting in a drawer. So this started as a 0.27 ounce. It weighs in at 14.7 grams now. It had 8 milliliters of product. And it's just a little pump, but like I said, I can't tell how much is left. I mean, I can hear it. It's liquidy. I did put a little on my hand earlier just to make sure it was still good, and I should be fine using it. If I break out from it, I'll stop, but I'm assuming I'm still okay. For the new, I am going to be bringing in, this is the Biossance Squalene and Tea Tree cleansing gel, and it is obviously brand new in the box. It's the little green plastic. Can you even tell that's green? I don't know if you can. It looks kind of blackish, but it is just their see-through green plastic little tube. It is 0.25 ounces, 7.5 milliliters. And since this one is going to be gone, I figured I should bring a new one in. So that's what we're doing there. And then for the gifted, I just recently got this, and I think it was part of a gift with purchase. So this is the new Mac Fix Plus. This is the one that's the alcohol-free. And I said that, like, I have the regular. I wouldn't go out and buy this necessarily, but I do like it. And especially if you're only going to be using it to kind of melt things together, like your powders and stuff like that. So I think it does have value in that regard, but I don't know that I necessarily need to change from the Mac to the Mac Stayover. But I'm going to be traveling, so I wanted to make sure that I had a little one that I could take with me because I do use the Mac all the time, and then I also use a finishing spray. So that is my gifted. Oh, did I tell you? 0.44 ounce, 13 milliliter. I don't know if I told you or not. And then the last thing I'm going to be bringing in is this. At one point, I was trying to do the Curology for like the Tretinoin, and this came as a freebie thing, but since it's in a blue package, I figured this counted. This is their Smooth Sailing Moisturizer. Now, this still has the seal on it, and I don't even know how old this really is, but we're going to use it up. It's a 0.5 ounce. It's a 15 milliliter. So that is what I am bringing in for this project. And now let's move on to some trivia. So this is one of those things where I'm not certain if this came to me first or if this was a result of something subconscious. And I'll explain that while you read the little sign by me. For some reason, I have had the John Cafferty song Down on My Knees stuck in my head from the movie Eddie and the Cruisers. I don't know if any of you even know this. Anyway, at one point, I was thinking about bringing that song in. I still might, but that led me to I'd get down on my knees for you, which I think is one of the most powerful freaking lines in a song. Sometimes there are lyrics that will hit me with like, holy cow, that is seriously strong or profound or whatever. That line to me is one of the strongest statements that a man can make, I think, for a woman, or for another man. Actually, it doesn't matter what gender. I just think that because there is so much machismo involved in culture, and not just in the US, but there's a lot of cultures where that is a big component of the way that males are raised even, which I know. We're not going to talk about the good or the bad of that, but that is a thing. So to actually get down on your knees for someone else, I think is an incredibly powerful thing to say to somebody or to do for somebody. So that basically led me to the idea of why, when you propose to someone, do you get down on one knee? Yes, and that's why I'm the crazy train. So I looked it up and I came up with a bunch of weird things. Let's just talk about some of the words that are associated with the concept of getting down for a bended knee proposal, which is what they're called. So it can signify just respect in general, but respect for a future bride, loyalty, devotion, submission, deference, promise, honor, chivalry, a surrender to love, a readiness to make a pledge. Now, one of the things about this, so the surrender is you're surrendering of yourself to your partner. And it's submission in the sense that when you're down on one knee and you're proposing someone, you're literally like offering to put your whole life in their hands. And you're hoping that they're going to respond with like kindness and love and acceptance. I mean, you're hoping at least. And the purpose of doing that with that in mind is that the person that's on their knee is telling the person they're proposing to, wow, this is going to get really confusing. But what they're saying with that gesture is that the person proposing finds the person to whom is being proposed worthy of honor, respect, and eternal bliss. I thought, oh, okay, that's really cool. I like the idea of like submitting yourself to your partner because there's a biblical tie in there about wives should submit to their husbands. And yeah, we're not going to go into all of that either. I'm not going to have a religious debate. But there is that idea of if you're planning on spending your life with someone, you are to an extent submitting your life as it was into something that's going to be new, where you have another person. It's not just yourself that you're living for anymore. That there's another person to take into consideration, and that it's going to be a partnership, that it's going to be a new thing. And I really liked how powerful the idea was of submitting to the concept of love, acknowledging it, owning it, and showing that's really a cool idea too, because people can fight against it. They really can. And sometimes love isn't even enough to get people together or to keep them together, but it's that whole idea of it's being something outside of self that you're recognizing as a powerful thing. And I think that's why I found that kind of interesting. Okay, so now where this comes from, we don't know. It is incredibly murky. Now, I read something, and you're going to have so many references down in the description box. It's insane because I'm going to reference everything for you. But I had read something that said that, like, if your grandparents got engaged in the 60s, chances are it was like in the front seat of a car or something like that. It wasn't a bended knee proposal. And now I thought that was just a sign of the times or something. I thought that this went back further. So there is no saying when this actually originated or how long people have been doing it or anything like that. But the concept of getting on your knee dates back to medieval times. Okay, now this is going to make a lot of sense when we talk about where this idea comes from and how it's based on the knights, essentially. So knights would drop to one knee to show respect to royalty. All right, now knights also bowed to noble women. This was it was a way to express to a noble woman the admiration and eternal servitude. It's considered a sign of courtly love. So, like, when you get down on your knee to pledge to a feudal lord or a king or whomever, that you're pledging to give your loyalty and your life for that person, this was also a way for the knights to show that respect to the females who, unless it was a queen, they might not have otherwise been bowing to. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, you've also got a lot of this showing in both literature and artwork from medieval times, where you will see like the knights in shining armor and you will see them on a bent knee. And a lot of times that was what they did when they were receiving an honor or an award, if they were being, when they were being knighted, all of that stuff. That's when they would, a lot of times when they would bow. There are depictions in cinema where you will see that the knights getting down on one knee is also acknowledgement of royalty entering the room or a greeting, that kind of thing too. But I think we're talking about like when they're pledging, essentially, as where this idea of proposing on bended knee comes from. Now, there is a thing that says, and I don't know if this is completely true, but that knights pledge to honor and respect lovers with the same honor and admiration that they did to kings and queens. And that's why the knight would get on his knees for his lady. So there's a little bit of a tie back to that. And I don't know if that was like a very common way to do that, but, or if it was just only knights that did it. I don't know if normal people did it. I have no idea. But I thought that was kind of interesting that they're then, when king and country are foremost, that they're also then pledging that same kind of respect and love and loyalty and fidelity and honor to, well, I'm going to say to their woman. I don't know if knights ever pledged that to other knights. I don't know. And unfortunately, a lot of this is very, very old. So this is very, very stereotypical gender roles, which I know is not something that is looked highly upon today. So bear with me as I talk about these things, because it's kind of hard to remember to say, oh, okay, or men, because with that, I don't actually know if that was the case. I don't know if it was okay or if it was all secret back in those times. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you. So with that caveat, let's just continue on. Now, there is also a tradition of kneeling being just protocol in general for ceremonies, for different ceremonial services, rituals. Okay, and then also for rites of passage, which did include the romantic kind. Okay, that's interesting. Kneeling at that point was a, oh no, okay, skip that, ignore that last sentence. There's a connection to religion. We're talking about ceremonies and rituals and that kind of stuff. So there's the concept of kneeling in prayer and things like that too, which also come from that time, but then also continue today in a lot of religions and a lot of services where you do kneel. Not quite the same thing. Usually you don't get down on one knee, but they kind of tried to tie it back into this concept too, to see where some of the origins could be. And then there is the idea of kneeling when you have been conquered. So like for armies, that it was a gesture of surrender, because the armies would kneel before the conquering peoples after a defeat. So yeah, that one's not a happy one, but it does come back to that idea of surrendering yourself and putting yourself in the power of another. So I think that's where they were trying to tie it there. Like I said, I found all kinds of stuff. We went down the rabbit hole. And because this is such an obscure one, there isn't, I mean, any theory that's out there kind of just floated through in some of these articles. Now let's talk about the normal way to do this, because this isn't like the only way to do this, but most people are right-handed. That being said, the traditional, because most people are right-handed, way of doing this is that the left knee is the one that goes on the ground, the right knee is the one that is bent, because that allows you to balance yourself while you have the ring box in your left hand and open it with your right. If you're left-handed, the opposite works better. Just saying. Although I know that there were decades where they tried to beat left-handedness out of people. So maybe even left-handed people do it with the right-handed way. I'm not sure. But there isn't anything hard and fast about doing that. It's just, I think it literally was more of an instinctive thing because of people being right-handed. So there you go. Now, there's a practical purpose to this, which is, in my opinion, has some good and some bad factors. All of this has good and bad factors. Every topic I discuss generally does. But the practical idea of this is that when you're down on bended knee and you have the ring box in your hand, you're actually at the perfect height to be asking for someone's hand in marriage. And then you're also kind of highlighting the ring. So the ring is placed in a position where the light is going to best hit it and it's going to show off that sparkling stone, blah, blah, blah. All pretty fancy. Yeah. Okay. We all get excited about getting an engagement ring. Now, the other concept of this, and this is the part that is a good thing, is that by being in that position, having the ring being the focal point and having that be kind of front and center, actually then highlights the importance of the ring as a symbol. This is the part that I think is a good thing. When you're pledging something like this and all of the things that go on with wedding rings, we'll talk about that another time. But basically, because the ring is the symbol of that commitment, that becomes the focus of the proposal. Now, if you're proposing, trust me, that's not what you're thinking. If you're being proposed to, it's also probably not what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, oh my goodness. But, you know, in theory, that's the idea. Okay, so yes, there are problems with all of this. Okay, we knew that. There were a couple of different things that I found that mentioned the whole toxic idea of raising little girls to believe that this is the biggest moment of your life. This is the thing that's going to change everything for you. So basically, you either end up being, oh, that poor girl sitting there waiting for her boyfriend to propose, which is crap. Or you end up being in a position where you basically are told, this is the thing that's going to change your entire life. And yes, if you accept, yes, it can. If you get married, your life will change. That's kind of a given. But this is something over which you have no control. You have no say. You can't, I mean, people do talk about it, hopefully, before they actually do. I mean, hopefully people have talked about marriage before they actually propose to someone. That would be a good idea. But you're basically stuck in a situation where it's like, hey, this life-changing event is going to happen to you, but you're going to have no idea when, where, or how. That's problematic for a lot of people too. Some people don't see an issue with that. Some people are fine with it. And there is nothing that says that a woman cannot propose to a man if you were looking at a man-woman relationship. Obviously, in same-sex relationships, either party can be the one to do it. It does not matter. All right. So just to not ignore some of the really problematic things with this. Now, obviously, my music moment for this is going to be You've Lost That Love and Feeling by the Righteous Brothers. Because of the line, I'd get down on my knees for you. I'm trying so hard not to sing these songs. We're going to talk about the song. I'm not going to talk a lot about the Righteous Brothers, about Bill and Bobby, but there are some things that are going to come up with that. So we're going to talk about the song itself and them kind of and how they got to it. So here's how this works. This song was recorded or released in 1964. It had actually been written, I think, in the same year. I know it was recorded in like September and it was released in November, so there was a quick turnaround. What happened is Phil Spector, yes, we know he was a complete nutter, okay? But musically, at this time, think about what's going on. So Phil Spector had seen them and wanted to sign them, kind of bought out their contract and whatnot, wanted to get them a hit because he now was taking over their contract. So working out of the Brill Building, can we say Carole King? Can we say Neil Sedaka? Brill Building is important, people. There was a married couple by the name of Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. Spector went to them and said, I want a song for these guys. Now, Phil Spector is credited in a lot of places as also being a writer. There was an interview with Cynthia that said he didn't necessarily sit down and write, but a lot of times he was the inspiration behind it. Phil Spector was also a megalomaniac and therefore wanted his name on everything. Okay. So when the Righteous Brothers heard this song, the first thing that they thought was, Gosh, that's a great song for the Everly Brothers because when Barry and Cynthia sat down and sang it for them, it was so high that there was no way Bill Medley was going to be able to do this. Even with Bobby's range, there was no part for Bill in that. So what ended up happening is Phil Spector took it and lowered it a lot so that it would fit their voices, but then also slowed it down. The interesting thing about that, one of the quirky facts, is that when people heard this later, because of the intro with Bill Medley's voice, they thought that the record was being played at the wrong speed because it's so low and because of the slow intro to it, which I thought was kind of fun. Now, you also have to realize this is something that came out in 1964. 1964, Beatles. Do I really need to say more? This song compared to that song, really odd thing to have come out at that time and a really weird thing to like put out there as competition. So, one moment. All right, so then you've also got to take into account what Phil Spector was known for in the good way. Okay? His dedication to putting a song together really was somewhat limitless. It did not matter how long he spent to get something to sound the way he wanted to. He was fine with that. Now, this song in particular is, by some accounts, it is the ultimate illustration of that wall of sound technique that was Spector's signature. So that is kind of an important factor to note. Wow. Okay, so let's talk about the inspiration for the song first of all. The idea was that they wanted a song that was similar in some ways, as far as the ballad part, to the Four Tops song, Baby, I Need Your Lovin'. But the very first line of the song, or I don't know if it's the, yeah, you never, well, I don't know if it's, anyway, the line, you never close your eyes anymore when we kiss, I'm not even quoting the song right now. Wow. Anyway, the first line, it's a twist on a Paris Sisters song. And the name of that song was called I Love How You Love Me. And the first line of that song is I love how your eyes close whenever you kiss me. That's why I'm screwing up lyrics here. So those are kind of the two inspirations for this song and how it came about. Now, there's all kinds of stuff that went on with the charting thing. Some of this is some of this is kind of cool. One of the things that happened was that Cilla Black released a UK version of this song right before the Righteous Brothers released their version, which I think actually irritated the crap out of a lot of people. There was actually some kind of a newspaper ad that went out saying that the Righteous Brothers were the true sound of it or something along those lines. But here's kind of how this works out. So the UK part, both songs charted the same week. Cilla Black's version came in at number 2, and the Righteous Brothers came in at number 3 with the same song in the same week. The next week, the Righteous Brothers hit number 1. Now, that was also the first time that Phil Spector had a number 1 UK single. This song has charted in the UK 3 times in the UK top 10, and I think it's the only song to have done that. It charted in 65. It was re-released in 69, and then because of, this is a little bit awkward, but because of using Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers in the movie Ghost, it kind of spurred a resurgence of popularity of their music, which when that happened, and this was in 90, Unchained Melody actually went to number 1, and then You Lost That Loving Feeling, which was featured in Top Gun with Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis, that actually ended up charting again at number 3. Now, this song has the distinction of having been the most played song for 22 years. It actually was the reigning song until the Police song, Every Breath You Take. Yeah, we'll discuss that at some point too, because that is one of the most stalkery songs. It is truly disturbing for a love song. Talk about misinterpreted. Anyway, this song had been played so many times, and this is all versions of it, that by like 1999 it had hit like 8,000 plays or something like that. But then I found another reference that said that it had hit 15 million airplays by 2011, and that's for all versions of the song, because there have been many covers. And like I said, Cilla Black actually came out with shortly before the Righteous Brothers did, even though it was a song that was written for them. So I don't even know how that happened. It's in the all-time greatest. It was in the Billboard Top 100 for the year of 65. It actually hit the charts in December of 64, but it made it to the top 100 for the year of 65, according to Billboard for the U.S. stuff. It did hit number one in both the U.S. and the U.K. All right. Okay, so here's a couple of weird things. The fact that it has so many airplays is actually a unique thing because the song is technically too long for radio play for the time that it was released. The song is almost 4 minutes, and I think 3:05 or 3:06 was kind of like the sweet spot for what DJs like to play, and this one exceeded it by quite a bit. So Phil Spector did this thing where he kind of went to a couple people and kind of fudged it a little bit about how long the song was. And then he had made some comment at some point about the song giving him an ulcer because he was so worried about all of the different weird critiques that he was getting from these other people when he played it for them, and that he was worried it wasn't going to get play, and he really was trying to get these guys a hit. And so that's kind of fun to know. But there's still more. All right, so let's actually talk a little bit about the song itself. There's an entire analysis of the song, and we'll go through some of it, but I'm not going to go line by line for you. Now, so there's some Vanity Fair called this song the most erotic duet between men on record. Now, that's an interesting way to look at it because I guess I would have never thought of it that way, but okay. This song was tremendously popular with both black and white audiences, and it was surprising for a lot of people to find out that the Everly Brothers were white. So years ago, what is now R&B and soul and that kind of stuff were actually called colored records or colored music. That changed to R&B because there was a crossover. Music is not for well, okay, I don't want to offend anybody by saying this. I don't think music needs to be for a particular race. I think that music can be appreciated and enjoyed by anybody. You know, I'm a big fan of a lot of the blues players, and there's a lot of that whole backlash about appropriating cultural music. And I don't know that that is necessarily, I don't see it that way. I think the blues comes from the soul, personally. So I think if you've got something that you can sing soulfully about, and it sounds like that, that kind of just falls into that genre. To me, it's a genre. It's not necessarily something that's owned by somebody else. I'm going to get unfollowed by so many people. I should just shut up. So anyway, there's a whole thing about how different cultures or different races related to some of the Righteous Brothers music. And it's really interesting the way that Bill Medley talks about that, about how it wasn't about the race. It was about whether or not somebody got it and understood it and it spoke to them, which is kind of how I view music. So for me, that kind of was like, well, yeah, that just makes sense. But I guess not everybody sees things that way. So because of finding out that these guys were white guys, there is a DJ out there named George Woods. Apparently, he's the one who coined the term blue-eyed soul, because that was kind of his way of describing how these people, these two guys, could cross over and be relatable to different races. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool, because I didn't really realize that's what blue-eyed soul meant, or that's where it came from. So that was kind of fun. All right, now, the lyrics of the song. Whew. Overarching theme here is about, in this case, a man singing it. With Cilla Black's version, I don't know. The Righteous Brothers version of it is about a man looking at his partner and seeing that their relationship is deteriorating, okay? So it's about the things that used to happen but don't happen anymore. So there's a sense of sadness, but there's only one area in which it's almost defeatist, because there's lines that seem like it's irrevocably damaged and you can't get it back. But there's this whole underlying concept of hope and fighting to not want to let this go, to want to regain that intensity, that intimacy. So when they talk about this, they're talking about like fading love and heartbreak and longing and yearning. And I mean, it's just like heart-wrenching when you look at the analysis of the song and the words that that they're using to describe these different lyrics. It's one of the more interesting articles that I've read. I've always said that I like to pick music that just speaks to me for some reason. And like I said, the line, "I'd get down on my knees for you," to me struck me as something powerful. I never really thought about the rest of it until I read this analysis of the song. And I thought, okay, now that's kind of different because it's talking about like a disillusionment and, seeing something that's slipping away and wanting it back, wanting to keep it, hold on to it, regain it, whatever, but using the words yearning and longing, and then like there's a point where it's begging. Those ideas and those concepts, those that are represented by those words, are so strong. This isn't like, hey, I'm going to ask you a favor. This is like from the core of my being type of feeling. So that I think is also really powerful. And I guess I hadn't really thought about a lot of that. Then there's also a part where they discuss that the self-awareness of the person who's singing this song, that the point of view that they're seeing is that they're seeing not only like what they want, and they're asking the other person to not give up on it, but that they're seeing these changes in their partner. I thought, oh, okay, so it's kind of a self-aware thing too. And I thought, well, that's kind of neat. Now, this song, like I said, I'm going to link you the articles, you guys. The analysis of this song line by line is just like, I've got 2 pages of notes, and I'm not going to just read you everything. But one of the things that is different about this particular song, because of it having that underlying hope, is that it's definitely different from the love songs of that time, because this is a love song, but it is not quite the same as normal love songs. It's not, I mean, when you look at the lyrics, it's not something you would necessarily think of, but it doesn't fall into that bitter heartbreak of a love falling apart, deteriorating, the demise of a relationship. It doesn't fall into that category either. So it's got that weird kind of in between, and that was a complete departure for the time that this actually was a hit, or when it came out. It's been a hit millions of times. That's not really the point. Now, I'm going to end this with giving you a quote, and I don't know who wrote it. It was from Songtell, but there was no author name with it. And the quote is, "You've Lost That Love and Feeling" by the Righteous Brothers encapsulates the depth of sorrow and vulnerability one experiences when confronted with a fading love. Through its heartfelt lyrics and passionate delivery, the song illustrates the pain of losing a once cherished connection and serves as a timeless reminder of love's fragile nature. That is pretty amazing for a song to do. So that's where I'm going to leave you. Like I said, I will have all of my references for the articles on the proposals and for everything for this song linked in the description box. I will also, of course, have some version of this song linked down as a video for your viewing and listening pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to be choppy while I was trying to actually cook dinner and film at the same time. Thank you for spending your time with me. As always, I truly do appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, see ya. Bye.